Welcome, everybody. It's Wednesday. It has been a busy day for me. It is Wednesday, July 26th. I am John Aravosis with the Aravosis Report coming to you live from Washington, D.C. See, I'm going to over enunciate now to get it right. With my daily show, talking to you guys about the latest news from Ukraine. Big news tonight to report, which we're going to start with the first story. But first, give me a quick shout out of where you guys are from and hello. And let me get TikTok rolling on my iPad. Hang on a second here. All righty, iPad. TikTok, 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 TikTok. Here we go. Boom, boom. All right. Yeah, that's good. Woo! Good evening, all. Yes, I don't know why I was so busy today. Today was just busy. It was weird. I don't know. Hi from Iraq. Wow. Hi, Razan. I don't know that we've had folks from Iraq that we at least knew about before. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm supposing that when we all complain about the temperature being ridiculously hot here, to an Iraqi, that's going to sound silly, probably. It's hitting like 100 in Washington tomorrow, which is, I always forget, 100 might be 38. What is 100? And Alexa, what is 100 degrees Fahrenheit and Celsius?
100 degrees Fahrenheit is about 38 degrees Celsius.
I nailed that one. I totally nailed that one. Oh, you guys have like turned me into Mr. Metric with this broadcast. I've had to think more metric because of course we do Fahrenheit in America and we do feet and inches and miles and things like that. And I've had to start telling you guys in meters and kilometers, so that you'd understand. And I've been proud of myself. I've been getting very close. I got that one perfectly. Hey guys. Hey, Ash and company over on TikTok. Welcome all. We'll take about another minute for folks to introduce yourselves. Thank you, Elizabeth, while we wait for people to join us. Windsor, Canada. Cool. I've been close. I've been to Detroit. Haven't been to Windsor. Hey, Carol. Thanks for the hearts. Red Watts and Crazy American and all sorts of gifts on TikTok. Thank you, guys. Up in the origami paper crane from Red Watts. Oh, hey, Alen from Sweden. Croatian Swede. That's an interesting mix. Oh, man. All right, guys. Going to start in about a second here. Another half minute. We'll let folks join us. 47C. 47C. Oh, in Iraq? Oh, my God. Alexa, how much in Fahrenheit is 47 Celsius? 115.
47 degrees Celsius is 116.
116. Oh, my God. 116 degrees in Iraq. Oh, God. I can't even imagine. It's 116 degrees Fahrenheit. And we have somebody from Iraq today with us on YouTube. And I was saying, probably Americans complaining about the temperature just would ring a little hollow to an Iraqi, I'm guessing. Thank you, Magical, for the paper crane. Did I miss any here? Bonnie and Karuna and John. All right, I think I'm catching up. User 7841. I think I'm catching up on the gifts here. All right, guys. I am John Aravosis. Welcome. This is the Aravosis Report, my nightly show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., where I talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Big news tonight. Interestingly enough, I'm only seeing this in the New York Times. And literally, I almost missed it. Because I go through all the papers all day long. And I literally at the last minute said, there isn't a lot of news today. I'm going to go and check the New York Times too, because there just wasn't a lot of news. New York Times says the counteroffensive began. It has finally begun. I'm talking the big one. Right? We know the counteroffensive began like 6 weeks ago. That was the one where they were testing in 3 different areas, one north around I'll sketch my little map out. The Ukrainians were testing with only a small number of their total troops around Bakhmut up here, like southwest, a little northwest and southwest of Donetsk around here, and then here in Zaporizhia province, right? So Ukraine was testing all 3 areas, but most of their fighting forces had not been committed. Today, U.S. officials announced that Ukraine has officially begun the big counteroffensive, where they are committing masses of troops. Going to be very interesting. Thank you, Tugas, Tomcat, and Shane. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Just to remind folks, so the way we do the show, I will talk about the news for the first half. Thank you, Bonnie, for the TikTok gift. And then for the second half, take your guys' questions. Please do throw your gifts at me as the show goes on. The super chat, or I should say the TikTok gifts. I will always try to do a shout out when I see the gifts fly across the screen. Sometimes I miss them, but usually I catch it. YouTube, excuse me, super chat questions. I will always get to those immediately. In other words, I'll finish my train of thought, what I'm talking about, and then do the super chat question if you guys throw those as a thank you for buying the super chat questions. I try to get to every question, but it's impossible. I will always get to super chat questions. Super stickers, thank you, Ivan. Super stickers are another way of just giving a gift. And finally, YouTube memberships are also. You'll notice the folks with green names like Brandy and Laka and Karen and Greg is another one. I don't know if he's here today. Where folks become monthly subscribers. And you can do that too in the comments, the $sign in the comments, click it, and you'll see super sticker, super chat, membership. That's it, guys. Let's get rolling, okay? So, as I said, the big story today that I have seen nowhere other than the New York Times, nowhere, is that the big Ukrainian counteroffensive has finally begun. When I say that, I will just reiterate, 6 weeks ago or so, Ukraine began the counteroffensive, but that was not the big counteroffensive. That was using a small number of the troops that they amassed for the counteroffensive. They were keeping the majority of their troops, on ice, basically. Thank you, Ava. Waiting to see, basically, thank you, Ellie. They were testing the waters. Ukraine, as I said, was hitting more or less three main areas that Ukraine was testing. Thank you, McFadge, for the galaxy. Ukraine was testing up here. Oh, excuse me. I say testing, meaning kind of attacking, seeing how well do the Russians defend, how well are there, what kind of defenses do they have, this kind of thing, right? So first, I know the map is starting to fall apart. First, we had Bakhmut up here. Ukraine was attacking. More or less southwest of Donetsk around here, Ukraine was attacking, and then Zaporizhia province around here. And the thinking was Bakhmut, they were trying to take back pretty much just to be jerks. What I mean is to basically embarrass Putin, embarrass the Russians, because Bakhmut was the only city the Russians won almost in the last year. Certainly since last fall. It's the only city, and it's only a city of 65,000 people. So taking it back is a huge embarrassment for the Russians. Here, southwest of Donetsk, I'll get my my pen here. Oh, I'll use the magic marker with. Oh, here we go. Here's my pen. Donetsk here. Oops, close it. Potentially, this leads you south to Mariupol, big important city in the area. The attack here in Zaporizhia potentially leads you south to Melitopol, big important city in the area. Thank you, Greg, for the gift on TikTok. Now, Ukraine's, there are certainly multiple levels, multiple layers of goals in the counteroffensive. The ultimate one, of course, get back all of the land Russia is occupying, okay, all of this. But the intermediate goal is to cut Russian forces in half, to cut the occupation in half. So again, Russia controls Crimea, the peninsula in the south. Russia invades in 2014, steals this. In the last year, they invade and steal this. So there's a big swath like this, okay? Ukraine needs to cut this in half so that these guys and these guys cannot communicate. They can't share supplies. It causes a disaster, especially for these guys in Crimea. Thank you, Peach Umbrella. That's the big goal for Ukraine, to cut them in half. Now, whether they cut them in half here in Zaporizhia, whether they cut them in half here in Donetsk, right? That's what Ukraine was testing, LWD. Well, what Ukraine decided in the last couple of days, but was finally announced today, is that the big thrust for the counteroffensive is happening here in Zaporizhia. That the goal is Ukraine has been attacking up here. I think it's Avdiivka, I think is what's up here, but Ukraine's been attacking up here. The goal is to get down to more or less where this little dot is on my map, which is Tokmak, a Ukrainian town. And then once they get Tokmak, to go down and take Melitopol. Now, if they take Melitopol, they have cut this Russian occupation in half, which causes big problems for the Russians. Now, I copied a lot of information down from the New York Times, as they were the only one reporting on this today. So let me talk to you a little bit about what's going on from the Times. All right. Is Avdiivka more east? Whatever. But you get the idea, more or less. Yeah. The idea was that basically that's the area where they were attacking. Thank you, Pedro. Bonnie. I'm just looking at the gifts here. I don't want to miss anybody. LWD. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Marcy. All right. Let me read a little bit more of this. So I'm just going to read you some of the paragraphs from the New York Times because they had most of this. The main thrust of Ukraine's nearly 2-month-old counteroffensive is now underway in the country's southeast. Two Pentagon officials said on Wednesday, with thousands of reinforcements pouring into the grinding battle, many of them trained and equipped by the West and until now held in reserve. The officials spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss details of the campaign. Their comments dovetailed with reports from the battlefield on Wednesday, where artillery battles flared along the southern front line in the Zaporizhia region. Now, Zaporizhia, as we said, Zaporizhia region this is the town of Zaporizhia, and the region is more or less here. So this is what the Ukrainians are going for. That's where they finally decided to put their big focus. Russia's defense ministry chief spokesman said today that there was a massive assault and fierce battles south of Orikhiv. Actually, Orikhiv is what I was thinking of. Yeah, Orikhiv is up here. You're right. Sorry, whoever said Avdiivka wasn't there, you're right. I was thinking of Orikhiv. Thank you, adventurers. The big battle around here today. The first Ukrainian forces have been why now? New York Times talked to officials too, and they said, okay, why now? Why Zaporizhia, right? Ukraine was going after, remember, again, I'll reiterate just because, especially on TikTok, but even YouTube, people kind of come and go. So we're talking about the big Ukrainian counteroffensive, which began pretty much today. Now, we know there was a counteroffensive that began about 6 or 7 weeks ago. That was the beginning, but Ukraine was only using a small number of its forces. The majority of its forces for the counteroffensive were waiting for basically the right time and the right moment and the right location. Thank you, Adam, for the heart. Today, the U.S. officials finally announced that Ukraine has gone all in, and they've chosen. There were 3 areas Ukraine was testing and attacking in. They were doing shaping exercise. Actually, exactly, Callum. I'm going to get to it in a second. They were attacking Russia and basically knocking out a lot of Russia's supplies in shaping exercises, like Callum says. But they also were testing Russia's defenses here around Bakhmut, down here around Donetsk, and here in Zaporizhia. And what they finally decided, the Ukrainians, that Zaporizhia was going to be the big push, and they put everything in here. That's where the huge fighting is going on now. Now, why there and why now? The New York Times talked to some officials. Here's what they were told. First, Ukrainian forces have been making plotting, so in other words, kind of slow, but steady progress, clearing a path through the dense Russian minefields and other fortifications. Second, they sensed an opportunity with the sacking of the regional Russian commander, Major General Ivan Popov, to exploit turmoil in the local Russian leadership. So, this one's really interesting. Remember, I want to say 2 weeks ago, Putin has been basically shaking everything up now because after the coup attempt, he's been freaking out, right? And he's been arresting military bloggers, arresting generals. Well, one of the guys Putin got rid of was a general, General Popov, P-O-P-O-V, and he was in charge of southern Ukraine, Zaporizhia region. Well, the Ministry of Defense basically got pissed at him, and this is wild because Popov basically privately, internally complained to the Ministry of Defense and said, this isn't going well. Thank you, Armando. You need to change what's going on in my region, what we're doing. Well, because this guy was honest and told the Ministry of Defense that things weren't going well, but again, privately, they fired him. Putin fired the guy. Well, this is one of the reasons the Ukrainians decided to go after this region, because the fact that the commander was fired meant that there was turmoil in the area there in terms of who was in charge. New person comes in, people are feeling disaffected, confused, and Ukrainians decided to take advantage of it. Thank you, B. Smith. Third reason why Ukraine decided to go after Zaporizhia and now. Ukrainian artillery barrages have been steadily attacking Russian artillery, ammunition depots, and command posts in areas well behind the front lines, creating a vulnerability to exploit if advancing Ukrainian forces can punch through the Russian defenses and cause havoc in the rear. We know, I was reading an article about this the other day. Ukraine was destroying something, or is something on the order of, I think it was 20 artillery pieces, or 20 or more artillery pieces a day, that they were basically really making a big dent in Russia's ability to use its artillery. Now, artillery is a big deal. I mean, as I always say, Not a military guy. I'm a foreign policy guy, but I do read and I do know my history. Artillery is huge for the Russians. That's the number one thing they love to sort of throw in warfare is just go nuts with their artillery, just bomb the hell with artillery. The Ukrainians have been making a very good effort at blowing up the Russian artillery pieces. And they finally, thank you, Nicholas or Nicola, and JRD. Sorry, looking back now, Mariusz, Phoenix, B. Smith. I think I got you guys there. Oh, and Armando. Thank you, Armando. That artillery is their big thing. It's exactly Calum's saying. It's like their main thing. It really is. And the Ukrainians have been doing a very good job destroying the Russian artillery. The artillery pieces, in other words, the guns that shoot off the artillery. Thank you, Pam and Billy. But also the actual artillery store. Thank you, Billy. That's one of my favorite. Was that Billy? That was Billy. That's one of my favorites. The artillery stores themselves, which are the actual artillery bullets, so to speak, right? They're shell. You've got the gun and the bullets. The Ukrainians have been blowing up both. Thank you, Tugas. Sorry, I'm very excited. Like I saw this right before we came on, and the news, honestly, the rest of the news is kind of lousy today. There's a lot of, not all of it, but there's a lot of news today. Thank you, Oh boy, Provengraven. I'm going to guess Scandinavian. Oh, you got a pound there. You're in Britain. Okay. Thank you for that. Oh boy, I am so excited today. Let me actually hold on. I'm going to shut. Sorry. Some people are saying the video quality. I'm going to shut one of my other thing. There we go. Video quality is what it is. So nothing I can do about it. Thank you, user 336. That is now. All right. I did not. It doesn't matter. I didn't put it down here, but that's okay. A U.S. official said, I'll sort of wrap with this. Thank you, Nina, with the Galaxy. Very generous of you. And Allie. A U.S. official said today that this is the big test. That what happens now is going to be, this is the big test for whether Ukraine can basically start to whether Ukraine can pull something off or not, whether Ukraine can potentially win this war or not. Thank you, Pernell, Tattooed Mom. Sorry, who else? Make sure I missed some of you guys. User 336. All right, Laurie. I'm going to look really quick because if I don't find what I wrote earlier, I remember it, so it's fine. Yeah, thank you, LWD. You know what? It's fine. I don't have it written down, but I remember what it was. So the U.S. is saying, thank you, Purnell. The U.S. is saying this is the big test now. This for the counteroffensive and for Ukraine overall in this war. This is the big test. They also said, and I thought this was kind of fascinating. The Russian trolls, by the way. Oh, I want some wings. Give me some wings on YouTube. And I just blocked a Russian troll who's really pissed off that the counteroffensive is taking place today. Give me some wings, people. You've got the emojis now, by the way. The U.S. was saying that Ukraine, the goal is this goal of reaching Tokmak and then Melitopol, potentially, they were saying potentially 1 to 3 weeks. That the goal was for Ukraine to basically come down here to the coast and split the Russians in half in 1 to 3 weeks. Now, the article did conclude, which was wisely, and said that you've got to keep in mind that a lot of the goals of this counteroffensive have been slowed down, right? That a lot of us thought Ukraine was going to go boom and go, blitzkrieg right through the Russians, and they didn't. Things are much harder than people, I think, anticipated. Thank you, Adventures, because the Russians, unfortunately, had too much time to build up their defenses, unfortunately. Thank you, Aflac, for the duck there. And thank you, Nina, as well. But that was interesting to me, too, that they were saying 1 to 3 weeks potentially for us to see major Ukrainian gains. Let's see. But this is a big deal. This is a big deal. Mods, have some fun with red on there. I love it. So now you back on Ukraine side now. Yeah, I was on the Russian side for a long time, and now I'm on the Ukrainian side. That was a TikTok troll. All right, thank you for the gift there, Sven. Wow, so that's pretty wild. Okay, let me move ahead. I want to cover the other topics too, and then obviously let's talk about this a lot. Thank you. Who was that? That was one of the gifts that they tricked me with. Whoever just gave the lights, thank you very much. They do not show me who the gift came from. I apologize for that. It's not showing me. Thank you, Pam, for the elephant ears. See, some of these, if I'm not looking immediately at the screen, it won't show on the screen. Like the elephant ears too, it didn't show. It shows it on the screen. If I'm reading the notes, it goes. Sorry about that. Any case, a few more other news thing here, guys. Thank you, Tattooed. Grain deal. British Ministry of Defense, basically, Nina sent the lights. Okay, thank you, Nina. Appreciate that. British Ministry of Defense said today that it looks like the Russians are preparing basically a flotilla to intercept ships that are going to Ukraine. That it looks like that is the goal here of what's going on. Actually, mods on YouTube, let me know. If the quality is really bad, I can refresh the page, and it may make it a little better. I won't be leaving, but it might make it a little better. Let me refresh the page on YouTube. Hey, Chazak, thank you for that. 1 second. I'm going to refresh once on YouTube. Boom. Adding myself to the screen. There we go. All right. Let me look here. Camera. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of an issues here. Audio. All right. That's the best we're going to get. Yep. Don't know why. Sometimes maybe it's my internet connection being funky, or maybe it's the connection here. Okay. Hopefully that'll help. All right. Anyway, sorry, YouTuber or TikTokers. I was trying to get the YouTubers and the Twitchers and everything. That did work refreshing. Good. Okay. See, I refreshed my screen and it helped. Oh my God. So excited. So anyway, British Ministry of Defense is concerned that the Russians are in fact putting together a flotilla that looks like they're preparing to intercept shipping heading to Ukraine in order to further hurt any kind of trade with Ukraine, the grain shipments, etc. The F-16 deal, total chaos with the F-16 deal. Thank you, Deadike, for the Galaxy. This kind of annoyed me right now. Thank you, user 2119, for the night hat thing. Politico had a story today about the F-16 deal, about Ukraine getting the F-16s, Ukraine getting the training, and it's all over the place. Thank you, Marcy. The story basically says that nobody is ponying up F-16s for the training. Nobody's ponying up for the training. Yeah, actually, for the training, nobody's giving. Nobody in Europe wants to give up their F-16s for the training, even though that was supposed to be part of the bargain. The actual training itself, it's not clear where it's happening. It's not clear if it's going to happen in America. It's not clear if it's going to happen in Europe. At the same time, oddly, they're building a training school in Romania. They're planning on doing training in Denmark anyway, but the article makes clear that the US the UK is doing a different training. The UK is doing training. The UK, it said, is doing basic flight training. So it looks like it's going to be training new pilots basically on basic flight and basic English language for flight is what's happening in the UK. But for the F-16s, they don't have the planes to do the training. They still haven't figured out where they're even going to do the training. And what really annoyed me with this, listen to this. Oh, that is okay. That's where I saw it is. Yep. Listen to this. Hang on. Realistically, U.S. officials say, okay, let me step back a second before I say this. Remember a couple days ago, the press secretary for the National Security Council at the White House, who's an admiral, Admiral Kirby, says that he thinks we will have F-16s in Ukraine by the end of the year, right? Then remember I told you how the article threw in later and said, well, that was aspirational, meaning it was a hope. It wasn't really an expectation. It was just a hope. Now, this is just a couple days later. U.S. officials are now saying the jets won't arrive until next spring at the earliest. Not just next spring at the earliest. I just, you know where I am on this, okay? I get very frustrated with this. I get really frustrated with this. This is why you don't drag out every step that has been dragged out in this war in terms of the aid that we've been giving Ukraine. We have been dragging it out. We've been afraid to help them. We've been afraid of giving them better weapons. Thank you, Marie, for the paper crane. And the problem is, once you decide to give them these weapons, it takes a long time to train them and then a long time to get them the weapons. That's why U.S. tanks, thank you, Marie, for the hat, U.S. tanks, the Abrams tanks, they may not arrive until next year either. They were promised in January. They may not arrive till next year. The F-16s promised, well, the final promise was made in May. They may not arrive until the next spring at best. You know, I mean, anyway, it's very frustrating to me. Okay, give you a quick pitch on my work, and then I'll do a few more stories. But I really want, and then I want to discuss everything. But I think the counteroffensive is the really interesting thing for us all to discuss today. So, one of the ways you guys can help me, as you know, and Stephen, thank you, is doing the gifts on TikTok. Paulie's as well, thank you. The super chat and super stickers on YouTube, but also is buying memberships. I've got a number of different memberships you can do on TikTok. You can become a subscriber on TikTok, a paid member. That gives you access to our weekend show and a bunch of emojis and things. On TikTok and any platform, you can also join Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a site like Patreon, where basically you sign up and you can do just a once a month donation. Now, because TikTok is broken and TikTok has still not fixed its integration with Discord that it's supposed to have, buying a TikTok subscription will not get you a VIP membership in our Discord, unfortunately, because TikTok is broken. If you buy a Ko-fi subscription, a monthly subscription, you will be a VIP in our Discord, which also gives you access to our VIP auctions, where we have a lot of really cool stuff from Ukraine we auction off. Nonetheless, those are your options there. If you want to subscribe on Ko-fi, you can go to my profile on TikTok, click the Linktree link, and the very first thing at the top of the page, Ko-fi, is Ko-fi. Check it out. You can do a one-time donation, monthly donation, but I'd appreciate the help if you guys can afford it. Thank you. You all, YouTube, you guys can do memberships. The YouTube memberships are really cool. It's a way, YouTube, thank you, Lady Kush, relatively new thing on YouTube. I'm being too kind to TikTok. You know, I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to, beat up the people who pay my paycheck, so to speak, but they need to fix this. It's something that's broken on TikTok's end. It's supposed to integrate with Discord and it doesn't, and they know it and they really have to fix it. For you guys on YouTube, you can obviously do the super chats and super stickers, but the thing I would really appreciate, if you can afford it, if you've been watching for a while, and again, if you have the funds, if you don't have the funds, don't worry. But on YouTube, click the little $ at the bottom of the screen by the comments. You'll see super chat, super sticker, which feel free to use, and memberships. Click membership, and you will see the various membership categories, and that's how you become a monthly subscriber. It will open up a series of emojis that you can use on YouTube as well. By the way, you get special emojis on TikTok when you become a TikTok subscriber. You get emojis, but also it gives you access to my Saturday show. I typically do a show Saturday morning, which is really cool, just for the paid subscribers. We usually beam in Vlad from Ukraine, and you also get access to the VIP the VIP auction in the Discord. And your name turns green. So when I look like Laka, Susan, Carrie, TNT, Carlos, and others, actually Tugas yesterday. I did see Tugas signed up yesterday. Thank you for that. I will know that you did it, which frankly is just nice because I appreciate it. So I'm able to see who helped out. So thank you for that. All right. Any case, so that's how you guys can help. And lots of other ways too, but I figured let's keep it simple. Those are the two big ways. So thank you guys for that. All right, let's do a little more here. New York Times reports that President Biden has quietly ordered the Pentagon to cooperate with the International Criminal Court in The Hague to provide evidence of Russian war crimes in Ukraine. This has been a weird topic for several months now. Basically, the U.S. is not a signatory to the Rome Treaty, or the Rome Convention, it might be called, that is the treaty that establishes the International Criminal Court. The U.S. was basically afraid that the court would be used to go after our own troops, and that countries would do it basically kind of like the United Nations, where you've got a bunch of crazy people. I mean, not the whole UN, but a lot of the UN is crazy people, and that they would use the International Criminal Court to come after American troops simply because they disagreed with us, not because we committed crimes, right? So the Pentagon was afraid of helping out the criminal court, and it dragged on for months, and Biden finally came around and ordered the Pentagon to help provide evidence of Russian war crimes to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. That's good. Wish it didn't take this long, but glad they finally did it. The International Olympic Committee today sent out the invitations for the Olympics for next year to the various countries. Everyone got an invitation except Russia and Belarus. Russia and Belarus are now officially banned as countries from the Olympics. Thank you, Salty, for the gift. They will still be able, well, we don't yet know whether athletes from Russia and Belarus will be able to attend. The IOC, the International Olympic Committee, has not decided yet, but we do know at least the countries won't. Ukraine has said that it will depend on whether the athletes are allowed. Celia, thank you for that. Very sweet of you. Sorry, Celia just signed up as a new member, and I saw the marvelous confetti from Ellie as well. We don't yet know whether Ukraine's going to come. Ukraine has been kind of thinking back and forth because basically, understandably from the Ukrainian perspective, they don't want to be in a competition with Russian soldiers. They don't want to be having their athletes literally placed with Russian soldiers who are trying to destroy their country and kill them. So let's see what happens. The Ukrainian government has allotted 40 billion hryvnia, which is about $1 billion this year to invest in their drone industry, which is pretty cool. $1 billion in Ukraine to invest in their drone industry. That's important because remember, I reported yesterday that the Russians are going to be building a new drone factory in Russia with the help of the Iranians, and it could be ready as early as January of next year. And there's real concern among intelligence analysts that this is going to really up the Russians' game in terms of the number of drones they're going to have available to attack Ukraine with. So yeah, at least this helps to counter that. Ukraine today admitted that it was responsible for blowing up the Kerch Bridge last year. Thank you, 863 Tom. Remember last October or so that somebody, now we know the Ukrainians, blew up a car bomb on the Kerch Bridge right here, bridge connecting Russian-occupied Crimea to Russia. Russia, basically, the landmass of Russia starts over here about 12 miles, 16 kilometers from Ukraine, and hugely important bridge for the Russians, hugely important in a personal way for Putin. He's very proud of the bridge. It's his big accomplishment, but also hugely important because it's the main artery of support for Russia's troops in really Crimea, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. All of this are supplied by troops and weapons and fuel and everything coming from Kerch. So big deal. Well, Ukraine finally admitted today that yes, they are the ones who blew up the bridge last October, which is interesting because we suspected them, but we never really knew. There was still a little bit of doubt as to who did it. So that was interesting. Two more stories. Moldova kicked out 45 Russian diplomats and embassy employees today. They said that the Russians were they basically uncovered a plot to destabilize the country. Now, Moldova, you'll recall, I'm going to get this basically right. Moldova, more or less, is right here. Okay, you got Transnistria, but it's part of Moldova. The Russians are playing games with it. But Moldova, more or less, right here. Okay, and the Russians have been playing games with them for years, stealing their land, trying to destabilize them. And now the concern was that, especially with the war going on now, that the Russians were going to basically try to overthrow the government and impose a pro-Russian government. The government right now can't stand Russia. They want to join the EU. They may want to join NATO. I don't know where they stand on that, but they want to join the West, all the Western institutions big time. And the Russians are not happy about it. Finally, actually two final stories. Putin's Africa summit is a bust. Putin he holds a big summit every year of African leaders. This year, let me rephrase this. Last year, he had 43 African heads of state come to Russia. This year, how many do you think showed up? 16. 43 came last year. Only 16 came this year. The rest of them refused to come. Well, the Russians are pissed. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov blamed the West's, quote, absolutely unconcealed brazen interference for the reduced attendance. The problem is when you try to starve people, they usually don't want to show up for your conference. Russia, by killing the grain deal with Ukraine, literally Russia's goal is to starve Africans and to starve people in the Middle East. And it appears, who knew? Thank you, LWD, that African governments don't like people who try to starve them to death. So, oh well. Russia does have a fragile ego, though. They really wanted this because basically they wanted to show, business as usual, right? Everyone's willing to come. Thank you, Timothy, for the gift there. Everyone's willing to come. It doesn't matter if you call us war criminals. What happens? Nobody's showing up, which is great. Final bit of news, another Russian military blogger is dead. Russian propagandist and military blogger Daniel, owner of the channel Carlson News, who has 43,000 followers, which for Russia is not a bad deal, is dead. He fought for an Akhmat detachment and died near Klishivka, which I don't know where that is. I'm going to guess Eastern Ukraine. Klishivka. Interestingly, in just the last week, a reporter, I almost fell for it, a Russian propagandist with RIA Novosti was killed. Russia calls them reporters, but they're not reporters in Russia. They work for the government, basically. So a Russian propagandist was killed. And we believe now, a month ago, War Gonzo, a huge Russian propagandist, was killed in Ukraine as well. So not a good time to be a Russian propagandist. Thank you, Tugas. All right, let's go and do the questions now. Actually, the last little thing I'll pitch to you guys. Thank you, Patrick. We do have a store as well, store.aravosis.com. You can find it in the links in my profile. Just click the link in my profile on TikTok. The store is down there. You guys can go to aravosis.com. You got that link there. You can find it as well. Red Watts, a lot of cool Ukrainian stuff, T-shirts, etc. And what we do is half of the proceeds, half of the profits, I send back to Ukraine. So please do check it out. Oh, you little Russian trolls. The Russian trolls on Facebook are never going to learn. They love this. They love to write. I'm laughing because they write these long paragraphs. And they think like I'm going to read it. It is hard to tell you how much joy I derive from the fact that they spend time writing this much garbage. And then I read the first line and delete it. It's like, oh, well, next week's auction, maybe at the end, I've got actually a lot of cool next week's auction. I'm trying to think. Let me take a quick peek. Let me see if there's anything I can show you from next week's auction. Thank you, Flower Lady. Very pretty there. Let me see. One second here. Here, I will show you two things from the auction. There's more, but I'll show you two. So one of them, although next week's auction isn't up yet, I'm going to put it up probably tomorrow, not tonight. One is this metal plaque, which is basically, it's from Ukraine, but it's a reproduction. Oh, thank you for the hat there, Cam. It's a reproduction of a Azov Battalion patch. The Azov Battalion are the guys who fought in Mariupol. Remember the 2,000 soldiers that fought the 14,000 Russians and basically held them off for months. It's a metallic copy of the actual patch that the soldiers wear from Ukraine. I bought it and had it shipped from Ukraine. So that's kind of a cool little piece. And the other thing is really neat to continue our jewelry thing. Thank you, LWD. I bought some stunning earrings. I will show you really quick. My sister helped me pick these. Thank you, Cam. My sister was the one I was like, okay, help me find stuff women would like. These are gorgeous earrings. And I will tell you, first I'll show you, but then I will tell you what they are, okay? You see the design. Now, the design is based on the Ukrainian Easter eggs, okay? You can see the design. Well, you can see how big they are if I hold it to my head. The design is based on the Ukrainian Easter eggs, but it's better than that. The design is a Ukrainian Easter egg. This is painted on an ostrich shell. This is an ostrich shell. I can't even speak English. Inside here, that's what the earring actually is. Now, that's pretty freaking cool, I think. Yeah, try them on. I'll hold them up here just so you can see the size. Yeah, actually, I do look red today. They go with my shirt. But I think it's really neat because I love that these are based on the Ukrainian Easter shells, the Easter eggs that they paint, and that they're ostrich. So that is ostrich shell. Anyway, very cool. So those are two of the things we've got up for auction for next week. I've got a lot more. I know. Flower. Well, I had my sister pick these. Thank you. Oh, who is that with the oops. Oh, Red Watts. Thank you. I was going to say, who did the elephant? Thank you there. And Alan Stefanak. Interesting name. Because you said Croatian Swede. I'm assuming Stefanak is Croatian, I'm going to guess. But is Alan Swede? Anyway, not familiar. I mean, I've been to Sweden a few times. I've never seen the name Alan, though. Thank you for that. Very generous of you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I like this kind of stuff, but I had my sister who's very good taste. And I said, okay, find me 2 sets of earrings that you'd like, that because she's got great taste, that other women would like. Thank you. Who's that? Big Hawk, I think. Thank you, Big Hawk, for the ears, or for the star snaps, excuse me. Anyway, all right, I'm putting these away in their plastic thing. So let's do Q&A, guys. We've got ample time tonight, which is good. Even though there was a lot of news, I think because I was so excited, I went through quickly. I am Hans. Yes, I am absolutely going to sell that. I have tried borscht. Well, actually, the borscht that I've tried. Thank you, LWD. Somebody asked if I've eaten borscht before. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the elephant. The borscht that I ate was only in the Soviet Union. I have never had borscht anywhere else. Thank you, LWD. It was actually quite tasty, even though it did have. Oh, you know what? I have been sitting here the whole time. Oh no, I took my microphone off when I went over there. I thought I was sitting with it down here. The borscht in the Soviet Union was actually quite good. It's a cabbage soup of sorts, but the one downside was they always served us borscht. It had mystery meat, and you never freaking knew what the meat was. You never really wanted to ask because you were starving. And if you didn't eat the meat, it was literally like cabbage soup, which is a great way to lose weight, but not stay, hungry. But it was good. But it was the Soviet Union, so you could have been eating, dissidents for all you know. But it was still very good. All right, let's do questions, guys. All right. Oh, Annie too. Thank you. Wow, a number of you guys are being members tonight on YouTube. Thank you for that, Annie. Very sweet of you. So I was just scrolling down. I just saw that. Thank you, guys. All right, let's talk about more. Ron B says, do we know how many troops and equipment Ukraine and Russia lose a day? No. Well, at times we have. And how much of U.S. military equipment has been lost? No. Well, there's a couple different issues. One, the Ukrainian stuff, it's in nobody's interest to tell us, right? Because it doesn't benefit anybody. So they're generally not going to tell us. We do know, having said that, previously in the war, I remember the numbers went up to several hundred to maybe even 500 a day, which was a lot of men to lose. On the Russian side, Ukraine wasn't losing as much, but Ukraine was still losing a lot. I want to say Ukraine, again, this is very, very iffy because it's just stuff from months ago. But I want to say Ukraine was losing like half the men the Russians were losing. But the problem is that Russia is like 3 times and then some, the size of Ukraine, like 3.5 times. So Ukraine has fewer men to spare or men and women. Ukraine uses both. 20% of their military is women, than the Russians do. But generally speaking, it's not in NATO's interest or in Ukraine's interest for them to tell the Russians how many Ukraine. Think about this. The Russians would love to know exactly how many Ukrainian troops have been killed or injured and are not available. And they'd love to know which weapon systems Ukraine no longer has available, right? Or how many tanks they've got left. So there's no way our guys are going to tell it publicly. So that's the problem. Yeah. So we don't know really for that reason. The Russian side, there are always estimates. I don't know of anything recently, but there's always ongoing. Let me put it this way. Ukraine every day comes out with estimates. I don't share them with you guys because I don't know that I trust the Ukrainian estimate. No offense, but the Ukrainian government, I would have a defense expert would have to tell me that the Ukrainian government analysis is accurate. I worry that it might be padded a little bit, I worry a little bit. So there. But they do, if you want, go check it out. They put it out every day, and they literally detail all the pieces of equipment. No, it's of the Russian side. All the pieces of equipment they've destroyed. The number of Russian troops that have died and been injured that day, and everything. So it's all there. Yeah. More questions, guys. More questions. What else? Any news on Belarus, Poland, Ukraine borders? Nothing today. There wasn't really any Wagner information out today. No, nothing. How long do you see this war going? I mean, the problem is the war could go on for years. I mean, these kind of wars, right? I mean, look, different wars, but U.S. was in Afghanistan and Iraq for 20 years. Russia, the Soviet Union was in was in Afghanistan for 10 years, right? It's not unheard of. I mean, World War II. My God, look how long World War II went on for, right? I mean, depending, I guess, do we consider World War II starting in 39? I forget sort of which exact date, but it went until 45. Well, maybe, 45 overall, right? So 39. So you're talking 6 years-ish, right? That World War II went. I mean, wars don't necessarily end in a year. This could go on for years. And what I worry about is that, the Russians get dug in. I mean, the U.S. is making clear that we are looking at what happens now with this big counteroffensive, the one that looks like it started in just the last couple of days, if not today, the big one where all the troops are being thrown in Zaporizhia. The U.S. is clearly looking at that and looking at how well that moves forward in the next several weeks. So we'll see. All right. By the way, Angel just got its wings. One thing that I've learned, and I mean, I've been working online communities since mid 1990s, actually, was the first time, 1995, the first time I built my own online community. I was working at an organization called the Children's Defense Fund, basically working on child poverty issues here in the U.S. We have a lot of poverty, or more than we should have as a developed country. And I've worked with online communities since then, and you develop a really good sense of who's a good witch and who's a bad witch, basically, meaning who are the trolls? Who are the people coming to the conversation? We always mention the trolls, but basically the people the Russians send usually to the conversation just to try to disrupt. And one thing I tell the mods, which I've told the mods this before, which is really interesting, is I say, if you're ever in doubt, wait for their second comment. If the first comment leaves you in doubt, wait for the second comment. And I just had a guy put a comment out, and the first comment was just sort of weird. And I looked at it and went, that's a weird comment. It wasn't positive or negative. It was just strange. So I waited for the second comment. The second comment, boom. If they're here to disrupt, that's their job. They literally can't stay and keep acting normal because, right, that's not why they're here. So anyway, it's just sort of a small point, but I like to share my wisdom with you guys as we go on. If you're ever trying to figure out who a troll is, like I said, and the first comment is a little weird, but you're not sure, give them a little bit of rope and they'll hang themselves, right? Give them maybe one or two more comments and they'll reveal themselves. Anyway, whatever. What else we got here? What else? All right, guys, more questions. You're not very questionful today. Now, Susan, thank you for the gift there, by the way. So Susan was saying, they said on the news today that Biden's son had business deals with Ukraine. What does this mean? It's a long story, but Biden's son, Hunter, who, by the way, I think he's kind of sleazy personally. I mean, I think the Republican attacks on him are horrible because they're just doing it to hurt Biden, and they don't care that his son is a mess. The guy's a mess. I mean, he was a drug addict. But I think he's personally a mess, this guy, clearly. And in any case, he was on the board of directors of a Ukrainian company. And the Republicans are trying to claim that it's a long story, but that Biden got involved and was trying to, help the company by firing the prosecutor in Ukraine, when basically the prosecutor in Ukraine was corrupt and the entire world was trying to get this guy fired. European community all called for the guy to be fired. IMF, World Bank, everyone, Obama. And Obama put Biden in charge to deal with it. And therefore, they claimed Biden was trying to help his son. Anyway, it's a long story, but they have nothing. I mean, basically. So the Republicans have been making a lot of allegations about Biden, but so far they have absolutely nothing. The one big witness they had a couple of weeks ago turned out to be a Chinese spy. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to stop at this, but a couple of weeks ago, they had a witness that they said, their big witness has disappeared. Did the Biden people kill him? Well, the FBI apparently didn't kill him, but he disappeared because he was under arrest by the FBI for being a Chinese spy. So it was like, oops, I guess he wasn't that good of a witness. So yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid. But his son, the last person I'm going to defend is Hunter Biden because he's unfortunately, look, the guy's a mess. I'm sorry. No, I appreciate it because I see Brendy's defending him, which I appreciate. You've read the book. What bothers me though is he then went and made paintings that he was selling for $500,000 because he's Biden's son. I mean, you don't do that kind of stuff. He's a mess. The guy's a little bit of a mess, but what do you do? Just because your child's a mess doesn't mean you get to destroy the parent and you blame the parent because the child's a mess, and that's what bothers me. But yeah, no, Biden. I mean, it makes me laugh though, because like Biden, I almost wish Joe Biden were a little more corrupt. You know what I mean? Biden is so not corrupt. And I mean, I don't wish he was corrupt, of course, but I mean, Biden could use a little more of a dark side to him because maybe it would make him be a little more aggressive in taking on Russia. I think Biden's far too nice, frankly. But whatever. The Mitch McConnell thing, no news on that though. I mean, it's not really related to Ukraine though. Freaky story though. The Republican leader in the Senate, he's the minority leader in the United States Senate, was giving a news conference today, and he froze in the middle of the news conference for about 30 seconds and couldn't speak. And he's just looking at the camera. His sentence stops and he's looking at the camera and everyone's looking around. And it kind of actually really bothered me looking at it because it's clear he's having a crisis. At like 10, 15 seconds, you knew he was having a crisis and nobody jumped in, which really kind of ticked me off. I mean, they should have jumped in quicker, but it was really scary. The video's out there. It's really scary though, because you look at it and you go, oh my God, it looks like he's having a stroke. Very scary, very scary. Anyway, Ukraine regaining land they lost. Yes, Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine's been heavy. The thing is, Ukraine is slowly getting back its land. What we're going to see now is, okay, I'm getting rid of you myself. No, nobody wants to buy your art. Bye-bye. Oh, thank you for the hat there. Oops, sorry. Where is this? Mute account. There we go. Boom. What else we got? I think it was the TIA as well. Yeah. He should have been. No, it's really, actually what was kind of screwed up about the McConnell stuff. He insisted on finishing they took him away. And then 10 minutes later, he insisted on finishing the press conference. Now, clearly this guy needed to go. And I mean, they had the doctors on CNN talking about it. This guy needed to immediately go to the to the emergency room. I mean, it doesn't matter literally when this guy says, I am going to continue the press conference, you literally sit there and block the doorway and say over my dead body, and you get his wife on the phone. And literally, I would block the door and say, you're not moving until I get your wife on the phone. And you tell her, because you're going to drop dead. No, it was actually, it's also bad because I realize he felt politically he had to do it. It's bad. It clear. Look, we don't know that he had a mini stroke. It sure looks like a mini stroke. And if it is, he needed to get to the hospital immediately, but anyway, it's funny. I mean, I'm not a fan of Mitch McConnell, but it still creeped me out. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the kind of thing I wish on. Well, I was going to say it's not the kind of thing I wish on anybody. Maybe not anybody, but I wouldn't wish that on McConnell though. That was horrible. You're risking permanent damage for your ego. And frankly, you're sending the message to other people that if that happens, a man toughs it out. No, a man doesn't tough it out. A man goes to the emergency room and lives another day for his freaking wife. I mean, she doesn't, and I don't think they have kids, but still. Do you think it's time for NATO to tell Belarus that if they get involved, NATO will step in? The thing is, Colin, we don't know that Belarus is really going to get involved. Right? I mean, I don't know. Belarus is messing around, but I don't think, first of all, we don't know that they haven't been told this. It's very possible that Belarus has been told, thank you, Timothy, you get involved and we're going after you. Poland, basically, Poland dying to go after Belarus, and that if you screw around and decide to go in Ukraine, we're sicking Poland on you because you're not Russia. We don't recognize your union with Russia. And if we, if so, let's see. I mean, what I worry about is, I think NATO overall is more cautious. The US is more cautious. France and Germany are more cautious. So they would not want to give any kind of a threat that would give details. They might give a threat, but it wouldn't be one that has details. Thank you for the hat there on TikTok. They wouldn't want to give a detail. They wouldn't want to say, if you do, then we're going to attack you. They might say, don't you dare. We're going to leave it at that. Don't you dare. They might have done that, I suspect. Robert Lee Bennett, thank you for a very generous super question. I might have missed it. Any news regarding Russia's push into Kharkiv area? Nothing. What? I mean, I didn't even see anything today on Russia's push into Kharkiv. What was going on in Kharkiv today? I saw absolutely nothing today on Kharkiv. The big story today was the counteroffensive is going nuts in the south, near Zaporizhia. The big counteroffensive started today, but the big one started today with all of the reserve troops. I hate to admit ignorance, but what happened in Kharkiv? I saw nothing in Kharkiv. Anybody else or what? Oh, I'm sorry. I know what you mean. Oh, I'm sorry. When I think Kharkiv, I'm thinking Kharkiv. You're talking about up here. You're talking about the 100,000 men, I'm assuming, that Putin had put, that we knew for several. By the way, thank you for the love focus there, Bonnie. And the Borg, I call those Borg goggles. The Borg goggles. Yes, the love focus. I think you're talking, when I was thinking you meant Kharkiv around here, you're talking about the men up here. I saw no news on that today. Nothing on that today. These were the 100,000 men. Thank you, Cammie. That Putin had put up here because he was hoping to pull the Ukrainians away from the counteroffensive down here. We now know Ukraine's big counteroffensive is going to happen here, actually is happening here. The Russians wanted to pull Ukrainian troops all the way up here to deal with 100,000 Russians up here. As of yesterday, the Russians weren't doing too much. Edwin is saying Russian forces have retaken 8 kilometers. Okay, that's not nothing. That's 5-6 miles, 300 tanks. Yeah, that's not nothing. Thank you, Rick, for the mustache and cat. Yeah, but I saw absolutely no reporting on it today, though. Nothing about what sort of it happened. No. And like I said, I was focusing more on the counteroffensive in the south. But I hope they don't get much. Although, actually, here's the problem, though. Here's the problem. Thank you, Elizabeth. One problem the Russians have is Russia now has its own problem. Because Russia put 100,000, think about this. Actually, you know what? This also may be one of the reasons why Ukraine today started its big counteroffensive. I did get a haircut, thank you. Why Ukraine did its big counteroffensive today. Thank you, Larissa. Russia put 100,000 troops, and some of you are saying 300 tanks. Thank you, Nico, up here in the Kharkiv area. Okay, or, well, yeah, I think this is still Kharkiv Oblast. It might be up here, but this area. The goal was to force the Ukrainians to move troops up here. Otherwise, they'd lose. And if the Ukrainians move troops up here, they're moving troops away from the counteroffensive, right? So Ukraine is having to waste troops that should be fighting the counteroffensive. I wonder if Ukraine basically didn't call Russia's bluff and said, you know what? You just put 100,000 troops up here. You just put 300 tanks up here. You know what we're going to do? We're going to put all of our troops down here, and we're going to cut your occupation in half and threaten Crimea. I'm wondering now. This is just my idea today. It is Kharkiv Oblast. Okay, I didn't realize Kharkiv Oblast goes so far over. That's why he said Kharkiv, and I was thinking the Russians tried to attack Kharkiv again. Okay, thank you for that. But now I'm thinking that. Thank you, Gaia. I'm thinking that Ukraine, part of the reason Ukraine's attacking here is because Russia stupidly put 100,000 troops and 300 tanks up here. Russia should have moved their tanks and everything down here. So Ukraine might be basically putting the shoe on the other foot and saying, okay, Russia, you want to attack the Kharkiv region? Guess what? We're attacking the south. And now you get to decide whether you lose, basically get a little more land in Kharkiv, but lose everything that, especially Crimea, because Crimea is what really is dear to the Russians. That peninsula, this peninsula right here, is like the crown jewel of what the Russians don't want to lose. Well, it is war chess. Yeah, I mean, that's how you fight it, right? Very interesting. Wow. Hang on a second. I'm going to change the temperature in my apartment. Remember, my apartment is always cold and hot and cold and hot. It's cold again now. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Nico, for liking the live. I always forget that, guys. Do make sure you like the live. I forget to ask you, but I think it may help to get more people showing up and stuff, for the algorithm. Oh, come on. Why is my thermostat is being evil here? Come on, thermostat. Come on. Oh, I use Google Nest and it's not behaving. Thank you for Dawn for the gift there. And I'm pulling up my thermostat one more time here. All right, what else have we got, guys? Sorry. Thank you for mentioning that, Tom. I appreciate that. Red Watts, thank you. What else we got? When will Ukrainians receive the Abrams tanks? Damn good question. When will they receive them? Who the hell knows? The earliest people were saying was the fall. I saw some talk where people were saying it might not happen till next year. Let's see. I hope does not spring eternal with me on these things, but let's see. Let's see. I'm not convinced anytime soon, to be honest, but Kelly Font says Ukraine really wants their south coast back and to reach the Russian fleet. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh, sorry. Solak, I was wondering what you were talking about. You're funny. You meant click the like button. Thank you for that. Is that a Vulcan in your picture? That's got to be a Vulcan. It sure looks like, if it's not a Vulcan, I'm going to feel guilty, but it looks like a Vulcan in your picture, or one of the Beatles. I can't tell which it is. What happens if Russia loses the war? Jonathan, that is a big question because it kind of depends. What happens to Ukraine? What happens to Russia? What happens? What happens to Putin? I guess those are sort of the bigger, more obvious questions. Putin probably gets overthrown in some way, loses his job if they lose the war, gets replaced. But what comes next? Is it somebody as hardline? Is it somebody who wants to make amends with the West and might want closer contacts and says, well, Putin was an idiot. We're the new people. I doubt it. You know what I mean? What happens to Russia itself if they lose? Meaning, does Russia hold together as one country or does Russia fall apart? I saw the other day some analysis talking about how, do I have any tips for being a lawyer? Go into a different business. That's what I did. Go into a different profession. But I saw something the other day saying that Russia is an imperialist country externally and internally. And it was interesting because externally meant they're always trying to take over other countries like they're doing in Ukraine and they're doing in Belarus. Internally, because they are a sort of aggregation of a lot of different ethnic groups, many of which maybe don't really belong there, but Russia is holding them together by force. So the question becomes, if Russia loses the war, will Russia as an entity break into smaller pieces? It could. I don't know. I think it's a good thing if Russia loses overall. Obviously, but I don't know that Russia will become a happier, nicer place as a result. I don't know that the Russian government will become nicer. Why are the Chinese not pressuring Russia in the grain deal? Maybe they are. We don't really know. China supposedly is the largest recipient of Ukrainian exported by, at least grain exported. Well, grain exports, period. China's number one. Turkey's number three. That to me struck me as always, oh my God, it's a photo from high school. That's hilarious. You totally look like a Vulcan. That's hilarious. I'm a big Star Trek fan too. That's why I saw it. And even frankly, Solak, I don't know if that's really your name, but it totally sounds like a Vulcan name, as I'm sure you know. Thank you, Randy, for the gift there. I suspect the Chinese are pressuring them privately and saying, look, you know, this better not go on for long because we don't plan on paying higher grain prices for you. Or Russia may have to be paying China. Russia may have to have turned around and given money to China and said, okay, we'll pay you the difference for the grain prices. Or we'll give you our own grain more cheaply or something, right? Who knows? Russia will have it difficult to engage the world. I saw Russia with a huge grain. Oh, Justin says, I saw Russia had a huge grain harvest, so planning on selling their grain instead of Ukraine. Yes, they've already been offering that. Russia was offering the African countries saying, oh, well, if you can't get the Ukrainian grain now, we would be happy to, give you our grain. Actually, Putin even said he was willing to give some of his grain for free to the African countries. So, yeah, they're doing just that. Now, mind you, some of Russia's grain harvest is grain they stole from Ukraine. They've got a lot of grain that they're now stealing in the occupied territories. Thank you, Bonnie. I have no updates on Odessa today. I don't think anything big sort of happened in Odessa today, so I didn't report on it. Big story today is the counteroffensive, which is happening in Zaporizhia. I mean, the big counteroffensive sort of broke loose today. What should we expect over the next coming days? I think the big thing, look, there's two sort of big things I think I would keep an eye on in the coming days. One is going to be, obviously, how well does this counteroffensive do in Zaporizhia? And again, if folks missed the beginning of the show, thank you, Royce. I'm not talking about the larger counteroffensive that began 6 weeks ago. I'm talking about the big one began today, it looks like. The one Ukraine for the last 6 weeks has been testing in 3 different areas, but most of their men, the majority of their men and women, were not on the field yet. They were holding them back. Ukraine has now poured them into Zaporizhia, the province in the south, and they're trying to basically break through here and get to Melitopol and cut the Russian occupation in half. Okay. So I would look and see over the next few weeks, is Ukraine making any kind of significant success there, or is it going very slowly, just like it's been going to date otherwise? Thank you, Elizabeth. The other thing is to keep an eye on what's happening with the grain deal. Is Russia going to try to blow up Ukrainian ships? They may. And I shouldn't even say Ukrainian ships. Attack ships going to Ukraine, because these are not Ukrainian ships. These are foreign ships that are conducting business with Ukraine. Is Russia going to board them? How are other countries going to react if the Russians board their ships? Are all the ships from developing countries that can't say anything? Or are some of the ships going to be, for example, from Greece? Greece and Cyprus, heavy hands in the shipping market. Are they going to be boarding Greek ships? Are they going to be boarding ships belonging to NATO members? That gets much more interesting. Are some of these ships going to say, screw you, and try to go to Ukraine? Then what do the Russians do if the ships just try to go ahead, right? So I think, to me, those are sort of the two big things I would keep an eye on, I think. British Navy ships, I mean, what about them? But yeah. Why doesn't NATO escort? Because NATO's afraid of escalating. I mean, I think we should escort them, but they're afraid. Yeah, we totally should escort them. Let's do a few more questions. And by the way, I did not eat before because I was so busy right before. So I'm not going to do Discord tonight just because I'm famished. I've got to go eat after this. So we'll do a few more questions and then do my Discord. We'll do Discord tomorrow. Yep. Ukraine shot down 36 cruise missiles tonight that have been launched all over the country. Hasn't heard of casualties yet. Kelly says that's good. What else? I saw that Kelly mentioned something else that I did see this morning. There's an urgent bill in the Duma, which is the Russian parliament right now, to authorize local governments in Russia to organize their own militias. I think Russia will get a lot smaller and outlying states will form their own coalitions. This seemed really crazy. Now, crazy for Russia. I mean, in the US, we've got state national guards and things like this. But in Russia, where Putin is, dealing with, they just tried to overthrow him. And he's now going to be empowering local governors to have their own militaries when a local military, so to speak, the Wagner Group almost overthrew him. I mean, that's insane. That's just crazy. So I saw that. It seemed not wise at this moment for Putin, but, funny if he wants to threaten him, if he wants to be threatened, good for him. Any news on Sweden's bid to join NATO? Zero. Hey, you're able to write. See, you aren't blocked. Good. Or maybe you were blocked, and when I whitelisted you, it worked. Glad to see it work, tired guy. Nothing on Sweden. No, there's been no update on that at all. Nothing. Sorry. Thoughts on the Danube being attacked? Well, so Bombi, maybe I'll end with that one. So Bombi's asking about the Russians the other day blew up a Ukrainian. Oh, okay. And I'll pull Arthur's super question up. The Russians the other day, pull this up, bombed Ukrainian grain facilities on the Danube, on the river, 600 feet, I believe, 200 meters. I think it was only 200 meters, 600 feet away from the Romanian border. So they got very close to hitting the Romanian border. A member of NATO would have been a big deal if Russia had bombed a NATO country. What is concerning is how negligent, that's the word I'm looking for, how negligent the Russians were in doing this. They didn't care. They didn't care if they hit Romania. They just didn't care. And what worries me to a degree is they didn't care because they don't think we're going to do anything in response. They think whatever we do in response, if they hit Romania, isn't going to be a big deal. Because I think they know Biden, Macron in France, and Scholz in Germany really are afraid of escalation. They're afraid of anything that makes this war get hotter so that Putin can get away with crap like this. And because he is getting cocky, but I think he's getting cocky because he thinks we're not going to do anything. So it's troubling because it suggests that Putin thinks he can get away with stuff, which means he may try more stuff. It also is troubling just because whatever the motivation, Putin's taking some serious risks, which means he may take more risks. I don't think it means a nuclear war anytime soon, but nonetheless, it's dangerous though. He's going to do other stupid things. Anyway, I think Wagner was going to try to overthrow Putin though. That's the thing, Jay. Sorry, Jay is saying Wagner didn't try to overthrow Putin. They were trying to overthrow the military leadership. On paper, that is true, yes. But I think Wagner was planning on taking over the government. I was reading in the last 2 days, I forget where, but one of the big papers saying that a number of this was the Washington Post yesterday, that a number of the top military officials in Moscow, the intelligence says, were ready to endorse Prigozhin as leader. They were ready to switch from Putin to Prigozhin as the leader of Russia, and that or whoever Prigozhin picks, so that basically potentially this was going to turn into something bigger, or this could have turned into something bigger. Yeah. So Scott Ritter, pedophile? You asked? And by the way, I Googled that to make sure. Scary guy. Yeah. Because I wouldn't say that about somebody just randomly. People kept calling him that. And I Googled finally and I read all about him and I went, oh, wow. Didn't realize, but yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, Tomcat. All right. Let me do a quick summary of the news, guys. Oh, sorry. Artur. Thank you, Artur. Could we tell Russia one more bullet and we step in? Yes, we won't. Now, I think what Artur means is you basically say, well, actually, we'd have to say more than that because it's more than one more bullet. You got to give Ukraine their land back, right? So the problem is we don't just want a ceasefire. Russia has to give the land back. But the idea being, do what we say or we're entering the war. I think we could have. Yeah, I think we could have. We could have told Russia from the beginning. We could have told Russia, you enter Ukraine, and we are pulling out all stops. We're stepping in. We should have put a no-fly zone in before the war started. I think we should have put troops in before the war started. We should have just put NATO troops on the ground and said, you invade, you attack NATO. And you attack NATO when we're at war. You don't invade, you don't attack NATO. It's up to you. But I mean, we could, but they're not going to do it. I mean, I always go back to this, but Biden, Macron, and Scholz, American leader, German leader, French leader, or French leader, German leader, they're all too afraid of pissing off Putin. They don't want conflict with him. I mean, I don't want conflict with him, but they're deathly afraid of conflict with him. So that basically you have no deterrence if the other guy knows under no circumstance will you fight him because you're terrified of fighting him, right? In other words, all the weapons and anything you do, all your threats mean nothing if the other guy knows you just don't want to fight. You're terrified of fighting. And I think we have sent a message that we're terrified of fighting Putin. And that means all of our threats mean nothing to him. But in any case, yes, we could have, but that would require NATO wanting to step in. And I think, again, those three governments, America, France, and Germany, never wanted to step in as far as really stepping in. I don't think so. Well, the great thing, James, about, by the way, mods, James is a troll. Thank you. There you go. Who was that? That was very good. That was very good. James pulled up the Russian talking point of, are you going to send your kid into the war? See, James, the nice thing is, I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I don't have to send my kid into the war because the Ukrainians are putting their lives on the line for all of us. That's the thing. They're putting their kids' lives, they're losing their kids' lives to help stop Russia from eventually coming after you. So, no, I won't have to put my kid, if I had one, on the lines. What I'm asking, though, is we give Ukraine the weapons it needs to save its kids, right? Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. Why are we not training them on A-10s? I don't know. Why are we not? Well, actually, the A-10s, I do know. Part of the issue with the A-10s was they need the air support for the A-10s, and they would need F-16s, and I don't know what else, because that sort of combined air power thing is something you defense folks know that I don't, but I do know that that's an issue there. That's an issue there. You don't have kids, your opinion is irrelevant? Troll. Troll. That would be Russian troll again, because they're not understanding the discussion. We just got done saying kids won't have to go. It doesn't matter if you have kids. Our kids don't have to go to war. That's the thing. The Ukrainians are sending their kids instead of us. So that was such a Kel troll. Que troll más grande. That one was. All right. Let me do a quick summary of the stories, guys, and then we'll come back tomorrow night. So, day 517 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. New York Times reports today that the main thrust of Ukraine's nearly 2-month-old counteroffensive is now underway in the country's southeast in Zaporizhia. 2 Pentagon officials said today, with thousands of reinforcements pouring into the grinding battle, many of them trained and equipped by the West and until now held in reserve. That's the big story to look at, I think, for the next 24 hours for sure, is to see what happens now with the counteroffensive now that Ukraine has poured all of its troops in. The grain deal, the British Ministry of Defense says they're very concerned that Russia may be forming basically a flotilla to intercept ships as they come to Ukraine. The F-16 training is still a big cluster F. It is not clear who's going to do the training, where they're going to do it. Is it going to happen in Europe? Is it going to happen to America? And U.S. officials are now saying Ukraine probably won't get the F-16s at best until next spring. That would be the best scenario, would be next spring. Ridiculous. President Biden has quietly ordered the U.S. government to begin sharing evidence of Russian war crimes in Ukraine with the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Good news. The International Olympic Committee did not invite Russia and Belarus to the 2024 Olympics in Paris, but they still might let their athletes compete under a Olympic flag. Not clear yet if they're going to allow that. We don't know. The Ukrainian government, I'm sure they will allow it because the Olympic Committee has no backbone. The Ukrainian government has allocated the equivalent of $1 billion this year to invest in a drone industry, or its drone, which is good. Ukraine finally admitted today that they were responsible for attacking the Crimean Bridge in October. Tell Cersei it was Zelensky. Moldova kicked out 45 Russian diplomats and embassy staff, accusing them of attempting to destabilize the country. Putin's Africa summit is a big bust with last year 43 diplomats, 43 heads of state in Africa came to Russia for the big summit Putin held. This year, only 16 showed up because of the war, and well, Putin is trying to starve them to death. So maybe they didn't like that. It's possible. And finally, another Russian military blogger is dead in Ukraine. That would be the second this week and the third in maybe 6 weeks or so. So not a growth industry, Russian military bloggers, but a lot of job openings. So there's a plus to it. Okay, guys, that is it. Thank you. I don't think I missed anything else here. I do have to go back and knock off a few or give a few angels wings here. Comments I missed. Thank you for the confetti canal. See, hold on, I'm just scrolling up here. I don't think I missed anybody else. I just missed the one angel. Yep, the one angel needed his wings. He's now got his wings. Excellent. All right, guys, I will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. The name of the Russian military blogger he goes by Daniel, and his channel is Carlson News. Carlson with a K, Carlson, and then news, but one scrunched word. Daniel. And Daniel has left the building. So thank you, guys. I will see you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. I will not do Discord tonight because I am famished and I need to eat. Other than that, and the auctions should be pretty close to done. There might be one auction item left. Otherwise, I will be putting up new auction items tomorrow. And there's a lot of really cool ones. So go check that out, please, if you would. All right, guys. Thank you, mods. Thank you, guys, all for the gifts on everything. Thank you for the 3 new subscribers. I'm not going to remember all of your names, but thank you, guys. I appreciate that. I can scroll down, although it depends if you commented. Laka, Brandy, you're not new, though, but I still appreciate it. Laka, Karen, Susan. I'm forgetting the new ones. Okay. The new ones haven't been commenting. All right. Any case, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. All right. See you all tomorrow. Yeah, bonne nuit. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Boom.